This happened about a month ago. I had just moved into a small rental after a bad breakup. I wanted a fresh start, and I thought the quiet would help me focus. It was an old house, but it felt cozy enough. I noticed the peeling paint and overgrown hedges when I moved in, but I didn't care much. I was excited to dive into my freelance graphic design work. The first few nights were peaceful. I often worked late into the night. But on the third night, I heard a soft creaking sound. My heart raced a little. I thought maybe it was just the house settling, so I shrugged it off. Still, the sound nagged at me. I got up to investigate. I wandered through the dimly lit hallway. It felt too quiet. I felt silly for checking at all. I didn't see anything strange, just my furniture casting long shadows. The creaking was gone, but my mind was still uneasy. I think I felt a chill creeping in. A few nights later, the noises got worse. I was working late when I heard footsteps. They were coming from upstairs. I sat frozen at my desk. It's just my imagination, I told myself, but I couldn't shake it. The footsteps sounded like they were pacing back and forth. I wanted to ignore it, but it was getting harder to do so. I woke up one morning to find my dining chairs shifted slightly. I wondered if I had done that in my sleep. It didn't seem like a big deal, so I brushed it off. Then, a few nights later, I swear I heard laughter, childlike giggles echoing down the hall. I looked around, hoping to find some reason for it. There was no one there, just me and the darkness. My stomach dropped. I tried to convince myself it was a neighbor's kid playing, but the laughter felt too close. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, but something felt wrong. Each night my skin prickled and I dreaded the silence more. I started to wonder if I was really alone in this house. Then, one night, I decided to stay up late again. I wanted to work through the weirdness. But the footsteps came back. This time they were loud and steady, like someone was marching. I crept upstairs, my heart pounding. I turned the corner, but the footsteps stopped. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. I stood in the dark, feeling the air grow cold. Something felt off. I could almost feel it watching me. I could hear my breathing. I felt a pit in my stomach. Whatever was making those sounds didn't want me there. Why did I ever think this was a good idea? The next morning, I woke up groggy and unsettled. I pulled the covers up to my chin and stared at the ceiling for a long time, wondering if I should just pack my things and leave. But I pushed the thought aside and made myself some coffee. I needed to focus on my work. I had deadlines. After breakfast, I noticed the chairs at the dining table again. They were still slightly out of place. I decided to rearrange them, hoping that would help me feel more in control. As I pushed one chair back into its original position, I noticed something on the floor. A small folded piece of paper lay hidden beneath the table. Curiosity took over. I picked it up, and immediately a sense of dread washed over me. It was a drawing, an ink sketch of a little girl. The figure had messy hair and a wide grin, but something about the eyes was off. They were hollow, dark. My skin prickled as I realized the unsettling likeness to the laughter I heard at night. I turned the paper over. There were scribbles on the back, words. They looked like a child's handwriting. "Come play with me," it said, surrounded by crude doodles of houses and trees. My gut twisted. I folded the paper and set it aside, trying to shake off the feeling it was watching me, even now. I needed to get out of the house. I grabbed my laptop and decided to work in a cafe, anything to escape the unsettling atmosphere that had invaded my space. I packed my things and locked the door behind me, feeling a slight relief in the fresh air. The noise of the city was a welcome distraction, but throughout the day, I couldn't shake the image of the drawing. I showed it to a friend later, who thought it was creepy but cool. I didn't want to tell her how it made me feel. I didn't want to seem paranoid. When I got back home that night, ready to put the whole day behind me, I felt tension creeping in again. The house was still and quiet. As I walked in, I paused, my senses on high alert. I thought that maybe, just maybe, if I ignored everything, it would go away. I placed my laptop on the table and turned to grab a glass of water. That's when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping coming from upstairs. My breath caught in my throat. I stood very still and listened. There it was again. Nothing like the footsteps I heard before. It sounded like a fingernail gently tapping on wood. Against my better judgment, I reached for my phone, the only source of light I had. My pulse raced as I climbed the stairs once more. The tapping continued, almost teasingly. It led me to the door of the children's room, one that I had kept shut since moving in. I gripped the doorknob, my hand trembling. Should I open it? Before I could decide, the tapping suddenly ceased. Silence fell over the house, cold and thick. Then, without warning, the door creaked open on its own. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice sounded small and weak. I felt a rush of panic hit me. Was this the moment I had been dreading? The darkness inside felt heavy. I stumbled back, heart racing. There was definitely something in there with me. Someone. My instinct screamed to run, but I stood frozen. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was in the house was waiting for me to make my next move. I stood at the threshold, heart racing, unsure if I was truly ready to confront whatever waited for me in that room. The air was thick, and a shiver crawled down my spine. I hesitated, then mustered the courage to step inside. The darkness swallowed me, leaving only the soft glow of my phone's light. I scanned the small room, desperate for any sign of movement. Dusty toys sat in a corner, remnants of a life that once filled the space with laughter. I took a few steps, cautious and calculated, praying to find only emptiness. Then I saw it, a flash of white near the window. The curtains seemed to flutter, though there was no breeze. My breath hitched as I moved toward it. My phone's light flickered, casting unsettling shadows on the walls. I felt like I was being watched. "Hello?" My voice trembled, but I pushed on. "Is anyone here?" Silence answered me. I felt ridiculous for calling out into the empty room. I turned to leave when I noticed a small chest beneath the window. It was ornate, with intricate carvings that nearly blended into the floor. It hadn't been there the last time I checked. With shaky hands, I knelt beside it. I brushed off the layer of dust and tried to open it, but the latch was stubborn. I tugged harder, my heart in my throat. Once it finally popped open, I was met with darkness, but could glimpse the corner of something buried inside. A dress, perhaps? I reached in, curiosity battling my growing dread. Then my phone flickered again, dying to a dull glow. The darkness thickened around me, and a chill shot through my core. Suddenly, a soft giggle echoed, filling the room with a playful yet eerie energy. I jerked back, the chest slipping from my fingers and hitting the ground with a thud. "Who's there?" I yelled, panic surging through me. The giggle sounded again, clearer this time, like a child playing hide and seek. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. My heart pounded in my chest as I rattled the knob, desperate to escape. "Let me out!" I shouted, my voice echoing against the walls. But no response came. The temperature dropped, and I could see my breath now in the air. Fear clawed at my throat. Then, in the dim light, I saw a small shadow dart across the room. It was quick, almost too quick to be real. "Please," I whispered, "let me go." Suddenly, the chest began to creak open on its own. I stumbled back, hearing the giggle again, but this time it felt closer. "Play with me," a child's voice murmured, echoing all around me. I was paralyzed, unable to comprehend whether it was real or just my mind playing tricks. The shadow reappeared, taking shape in front of me. Messy hair, a wide grin, those hollow eyes. Panic surged. I darted towards the window, hoping for a way out. But as I reached for it, everything went dark. My heart raced as I realized I was not alone. Something was there with me, waiting in the pitch black. Then a whisper floated through the air. "You've come back to play." That was when I saw it, the drawing, now crumpled in the corner, almost mocking me. The girl from the paper was in front of me, her grin widening. I couldn't move. The smile on her face twisted my stomach into knots. "Play with me," she repeated in a sing-song voice. I was frozen, caught between terror and a desperate need to understand. Who was she? Why did she look exactly like the girl in the drawing? As if sensing my fear, her grin broadened, revealing small, sharp teeth. I stumbled back, my heart racing, and felt the wall press against my back. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the air was being sucked out of the room. "No!" I managed to gasp, desperate to break the trance that held me. The shadows in the room seemed to thicken, closing in around me. I tried to calculate my next move, spotting the open chest on the floor, its dark contents now a glimmering allure. I didn't want to see what lay inside. I had to find a way out. But then the girl lifted her hand, pointing directly at me. "You can be my friend again," she said softly, each word dripping with malice. My thoughts raced. Again? Had I known her before? A deeper memory tugged at me, but I couldn't grasp it. "Let me go!" I shouted, trying to sound stronger than I felt. The girl's laughter bubbled up again, a sound that wrapped around me like a noose. I felt the dread rising in me like bile. In a flash of courage, I lunged towards the chest. If there was anything in there that could help me understand, not just about her, but about this entire place, I had to find out. I knelt, fumbling through the darkness, my hands brushing against soft fabric. I pulled out what looked like another small dress, this one smaller than the first, and it felt oddly warm to the touch. As I held it up to my phone's dying light, I noticed something strange. The dress appeared to shimmer, tiny patterns shifting as if they were alive. The girl pouted, her demeanor shifting from playful to displeased. "You shouldn't have touched it," she warned, her voice low. I felt dizzy, the room spinning as her words echoed around me. That's when I caught sight of a small mirror lying at the bottom of the chest. Trembling, I reached down to grab it. The surface felt smooth, unusual in the dim light. But the moment I looked at it, I gasped. Instead of my own reflection, there was the girl, no longer smiling, but staring at me with such intensity it felt like her hollow eyes pierced straight through me. My breath quickened. I was seeing a piece of her, an essence that couldn't let go. "You can't escape," she whispered, and I felt the cold fingers of terror wrap around my throat. Just then, the sound of footsteps broke through the silence, slow and deliberate, as if someone was approaching the door. Relief washed over me, thinking I might not be entirely alone in this nightmare. But fear quickly snatched that away. What would happen if whoever was outside came in? I glanced back at the girl, her expression darkening. "You can't let them see you," she said, and suddenly all I wanted was to run. But before I could take a step towards the door, the knob began to jiggle. The girl smiled again, but this time it was a wicked smirk. "You should stay and play." And just like that, the footsteps stopped. I was left standing there, heart racing, caught in a game I never wanted to play.
My heart thudded loudly in my chest, drowning out the thick silence in the room. I was paralyzed, half expecting the door to burst open and drag me into whatever horror awaited outside. The girl remained still, her wicked smile unchanging, as if she derived great pleasure from my fear. The doorknob rattled again, more insistently this time. Each shake sent a jolt of panic through me. Should I hide? Should I confront whatever or whoever was trying to enter? But where could I hide in this cramped space? The chest? No, I'd just risk becoming trapped in there with the girl. Suddenly, the door creaked open. A gust of chill air rushed in, but the figure, silhouetted in the doorway, was not what I anticipated. It was a woman, her outline shrouded in an otherworldly glow. I wanted to call out for help, to let her know I was here, but the words caught in my throat. "Stay with me," the girl hissed, and I felt a strange pull, as if my feet were glued to the ground. The woman took a step into the room, and I could see her face now, pale and drawn, with eyes that shimmered in the dim light. She looked familiar. I searched my memory, but came up blank. She crossed the threshold, and the girl stepped forward to block her path. The air crackled with tension. "Leave!" the girl demanded, her tone sharp as shards of glass. The woman faltered, staring intensely at the girl, and flickers of recognition crossed her face. "Please," the woman said, her voice soft but powerful. "You need to let her go."
"She's not yours to keep." The girl's eyes narrowed, each sharp tooth gleaming as she bared her smile. "You don't understand. We're friends." Were they? The word echoed in my mind, bouncing among the walls like a pinball. Had they shared a bond before this nightmare? The idea unsettled me deeply. The woman stepped further into the room, her presence seeming to push back against the girl's malice. It was as if she brought light into the darkness. "Don't let her trick you," the woman urged, her voice rising. "You mustn't remain here. She will only lead you further into despair." My instincts screamed at me to run, to crash through the door and never look back. But I felt trapped, caught between two forces pulling me apart. The girl flicked her gaze toward me, her expression shifting from playful to enraged. I staggered backward, still clutching the shimmering dress in the mirror. Glancing from the girl to the woman, my decision bubbled to the surface, but doubt clouded my mind. My heart raced. I felt the overwhelming urge to flee, but I couldn't leave without knowing the truth. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice barely rising above a whisper. The woman opened her mouth to respond, but before she could utter a single word, the lights flickered. The dim glow vanished, plunging the room into darkness. The sudden silence was suffocating, and I felt a rush of panic course through my veins. Then I heard it again, footsteps, echoing from within the darkness. The girl's laughter rang out, sinister and chilling. "You see," she taunted, "you can't escape. Playtime is only beginning." The darkness swallowed me whole, every breath turning into a shallow gasp. I stumbled in the black, searching for the wall with my hand outstretched. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, making my skin crawl. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt dry, constricted by fear. Suddenly, a cold breeze swirled through the room, sending shivers down my spine. I couldn't tell if it was the draft or the presence of something more sinister. "Stay with me," the girl whispered again, her voice echoing around me, taunting and sweet. I squinted, trying to see where she was, but nothing was visible. "Get away!" I shouted into the void, desperate to push her away. My own voice seemed to bounce back, mocking me. The woman's soft voice broke through the chaos. "You need to trust me. Focus on my voice." "Trust you? You're a stranger!" I cried, my panic rising. My heart raced with disbelief and confusion. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath, listening for the next sound. Then I saw it. A sliver of light cutting through the darkness from the door, a flickering glow, like a candle struggling against the wind. I darted toward it, fueled by instinct. "Please don't!" the girl screeched, her voice filled with rage. I covered my ears, but the sound penetrated deeper than just through my skin. It clawed my mind. I reached the door, flinging it open with all my might. Light spilled into the room, illuminating the space just enough for me to see the girl writhe in fury. In that moment, my gaze fell upon the woman, who appeared fragile yet unyielding, standing just behind me like an ethereal guardian. "Go," she urged again. "Don't look back. You need to escape." But the girl surged forward, her face twisting into something monstrous. Shadows coiled around her like snakes, and I could feel her anger radiating in waves. My instincts screamed at me to run, to bolt through the open door. Yet doubt flickered in my brain like the dying glow from the light bulb. The sound of footsteps returned, louder this time. I glanced one last time at the woman, who looked grave but determined. "Trust me, you'll understand soon." With a final surge of courage, I plunged through the doorway and into the hallway. The floor felt cool beneath my feet. I ran, not looking back, but already I could sense the girl was close behind, her laughter echoing like a siren's song. I darted into the nearest room, slamming the door behind me and locking it tight. My heart thudded in my chest as I leaned against it, gasping for breath. Just then, I caught sight of an old mirror hanging on the wall. It was dust-covered but familiar. I stepped closer, while my mind raced with questions. But as I wiped away the grime, I froze. That's when I saw it. My reflection stared back at me. But when I looked closer, it wasn't just me in the glass. There, just over my shoulder, lurked a figure I recognized from my dream. My pulse quickened as I tried to comprehend what I was seeing. "Who are you?" I whispered, filled with dread. But the figure only smiled, and the room grew colder. The chill in the room intensified, as if the very air was alive. My heart raced, and I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance. The figure in the mirror faded back into the shadows, leaving only the image of me, wide-eyed and fearful. I forced myself to look away from the mirror. As I did, the locked door rattled violently. My breath caught. Someone was trying to get in. Panic surged again, and I scanned the room for a place to hide. There wasn't much. A large wardrobe stood against the wall, but it felt more like a coffin than a refuge. The rattling grew more frantic, and I pressed my body against the door, praying it wouldn't give way. "Please, stop," I shouted, my voice trembling. The footsteps now sounded as if they echoed from all directions, returning to taunt me. I couldn't see anything beyond the door, but I felt the pressure of another presence attempting to breach the small barrier of safety I clung to. Then, silence. A heavy pause fell over the room, and I dared to breathe again. My heart still pounded in my ears, drowning out reason. I peered through the narrow crack around the door, desperately searching for any sign of movement. "Why are you hiding?" The girl's voice whispered softly, almost sweetly, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. "You let me in. Why don't you let me out?" My stomach twisted. I had to escape the weight of her words. I stepped away from the door and glanced back at the mirror. The reflection was intact, but now it looked like an invitation instead of a warning. With tentative steps, I approached it again. "What do you want from me?" I breathed, the tremor in my voice betraying my efforts to sound calm. The reflection shifted slightly, as if the figure could hear me. Then, abruptly, it pointed at something behind me. I spun around, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Nothing.
just the wallpaper peeling at the corners and the shadowy corners of the dim room. But when I turned back to the mirror, the figure was gone. My heart sank as I realized I was now completely alone in the room, forgotten by the girl, the woman, and whatever darkness had been trailing me. A sharp knock on the door jolted me back to reality. I jumped, my mind racing to piece together what was happening. "Open the door!" a voice yelled. It was deeper, with a heavy authority. "We know you're in there!" I hesitated, my palms sweaty against the cold wood. They couldn't be trusted, could they? What if it was another trick, just another diversion? I was trapped in a whirlpool of dread, unable to discern friend from foe. "Let us help you," the voice insisted again, filled with an urgency that my instincts screamed. My thoughts raced. Who were they? What did they know? I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. Another series of knocks, this time more insistent. In that moment, the door rattled again, and I jumped as it shifted on its hinges. I needed to decide. Trust the stranger behind the door, or remain in this room, waiting for whatever horror came next. Before I could think any further, the lock clicked. The door burst open, and a shadowy figure filled the threshold, dark as midnight. "Have you seen her?" the figure asked, eyes wide with fear. And just like that, the chaos tightened around me once again. I couldn't speak. The words stuck in my throat, and my mind was reeling. This person, standing before me like a wraith in the fading light, looked desperate, wild-eyed. Who are you looking for?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "They took her. I'm trying to find her," the stranger breathed, stepping further into the room. I instinctively pulled back, fearing the closeness of their panic. "Please, I know you've seen her." "Seen who?" I pressed, my heart racing even faster. The figure looked around the room, taking in the peeling wallpaper and the disconnected furniture as if it held answers to questions I didn't understand. "Her, the girl." They took a step closer, and with that, an unfamiliar scent filled the air, something sweet and sickly. "She's not safe anymore. We need to get out." Before I could respond, the door slammed shut behind them, trapping us inside. The sudden sound was thunderous, and I flinched. "What are you doing?" I screamed, panic bubbling back up. "Let me out!" The figure rushed to the door, trying in vain to pull it open. "We have to save her!" they shouted, a hint of madness creeping into their voice. "They're coming for us!" I felt a chill sweep through me again, and not from the air. I took a step back, my instincts screaming for me to flee. Something primal in me knew that this wasn't just about a girl. It was about whatever darkness had followed me into this very room. "Listen," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Who are they? Who took her?" "They came from the mirror." The stranger's words fell like stones into the creeping silence. "If she's still in there, if the door opens, we can lose everything." My eyes snapped to the mirror, now a blank reflection. I didn't want to think about its role in this nightmare. "What do you mean, the door opens? What will happen?" "They'll come," the figure said, their voice shaking. "They'll take you too." The weight of their confession clawed at my sanity. Just then, the eerie quiet of the room was disrupted again. Faint footfalls echoed from behind the door, soft and deliberate. I knew the sound from before, the taunting rhythm that sent shivers down my spine. The stranger spun around, horror broadening their eyes. "They're here!" Instantly, the atmosphere shifted. I felt cold fingers of dread creeping down my back. "We have to hide," the stranger urged. But where could we go? The wardrobe, the only option, loomed in the corner like the jaws of a beast. I glanced toward it, but the idea of squeezing into that dark space made my stomach turn. "Quick!" They grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the wardrobe. I hesitated for just a moment, but then, feeling the pressure of the footsteps growing closer, I dove in after them. The door creaked closed, plunging us into darkness. We huddled there, barely breathing, as shadows danced just outside. That's when I felt something cold brush against my neck. A whisper floated into the dark. "You let her in. Now let me out." And I knew we were not alone. I stayed still, my heart hammering in my chest. The whisper sent desperate chills through me, and all I could think about was the darkness pressing in. I tried to focus on the stranger beside me. If they couldn't move, I couldn't either. The footsteps grew louder outside the wardrobe, a sinister crunching sound like gravel shifting. I held my breath, terrified they'd hear me. The shadows swirled around the tiny space, dark and consuming. "Please," I whispered to the stranger, "what do we do?" "They can smell fear," they replied, barely above a breath. "Stay quiet." But how could I? My mind raced with thoughts of the girl they were looking for. Somewhere out there, she was in danger too. I forced myself to think about her. I had to believe we could figure this out. Suddenly, the floor creaked as if something heavy shifted, and I almost flinched. The stranger's hand squeezed mine, a painful reminder that we were trapped together. "Just wait," they murmured. Then the whispering resumed, clearer this time. "You let her in, now let me out." I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. My instincts screamed at me to bolt, but bolting meant revealing my hiding place. I could practically hear a heartbeat from the other side of the wardrobe. I was terrified to find out what was there. The footsteps stopped. Silence enveloped the room, a thick weight. I slowly turned my head, but I couldn't see anything past the splintered wood. What if they were just waiting? "Are they gone?" I dared to ask. "Not yet," the figure's voice trembled. "Just stay still." Moments felt like hours as I fought to keep calm. And then I heard it. The sound of something scratching, nails dragging across the wood of the door. I could almost feel it clawing its way inside, seeking a way into our cramped sanctuary. "Please, no," I gasped, fear bubbling up. I barely recognized my own voice. "Shh," the stranger hissed. "Don't provoke them." I pressed my back against the wardrobe wall, hoping it would swallow me whole. But the scratching persisted, relentless. It felt like time was stretching, the echoes of those nails scraping away at my sanity. Then I heard it, the sudden sound of splintering wood from the door. The wardrobe shook, rattled by unseen hands eager to break through and reach us. My heart dropped. Were we going to die in here? With a final desperate effort, I pushed against the wardrobe door. "We can't stay here anymore." "No, if we go out, we'll—" Then everything went dark. The wardrobe door flung open, and light flooded in. A figure stood before us, silhouetted in the doorway. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel the darkness radiating from them, an overpowering presence that choked the air. "Come out," the figure said, voice smooth and chilling. I turned to the stranger, fear crashing over me like waves. What do we do? But they looked just as lost. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about the girl anymore. It was about us, too. And the darkness wasn't finished with us yet. In a split second, instinct kicked in. I shoved past the stranger and bolted from the wardrobe. I had no plan.
Just a primal urge to escape. The figure lurked in the doorway, a shadowy enigma that chilled me to my core. But I didn't pause. I dashed right past it, hoping to find freedom in the spaces beyond. The house felt alive, breathing as I ran down the once familiar halls that now twisted like a maze. I heard the stranger shouting behind me, but I couldn't stop. I didn't know whether they were friend or foe. I needed to focus on my own survival. I reached the stairs, my feet pounding against the old wood. With each step down, the darkness of that upstairs room felt further away, and yet the weight of it lingered in my chest.
I threw open the front door and stumbled into the dim twilight of the evening. The air was thick and musty, each breath a reminder of what I had just escaped. I paused to catch my breath on the porch, heart racing, but the moment I hesitated, I felt it, an overwhelming dread. The door to the house slammed shut behind me, sealing whatever nightmare resided within. I turned back, but there was no way I would go in again. I glanced around, seeking anything, anyone who could help make sense of what had happened. The street was deserted, shadows pooling beneath street lamps. I could hear my pulse against the silence. I had to get away. I felt drawn to the road, away from that cursed house. But the hairs on the back of my neck prickled again. Something felt off. "Hey, are you okay?" A voice broke through the stillness. I whipped around, and there stood a man, clothes rumpled and disheveled, eyes wide with concern. "What happened to you?" My voice faltered, but the words spilled out. "There was a girl in the house. She was trying to take me, and there was another person. I didn't want to play." My heart rate soared again as I recounted the horrors, but the stranger looked skeptical. "You're safe now, right? You need to calm down." "Safe?" I choked out. "You don't understand. I've seen her. I felt her." Anxiety flooded my senses, the image of the girl with those hollow eyes vivid in my mind. "Maybe it was just a bad experience," he offered, but I could see the doubt in his face. "You should call someone, get help." As if his words had summoned it back, the air chilled again, and a low laugh echoed from the direction of the house, dark and playful. My stomach turned. I backed away slowly, my instinct screaming for me to run, but I stood frozen, trapped between rationality and sheer terror. "I can't go back, I can't go back," I repeated, desperately hoping that repeating it would somehow erase the memory of what lay within those walls. "You don't have to," he insisted, starting to reach for me. There was a kindness in his eyes, but I could feel something shift in the atmosphere around him.
I glanced back at the house one last time, wishing to see nothing but silence. But the girl appeared in the window, just a fleeting glimpse, hair dark and wild, and that smile, wide and sharp. I covered my mouth to stifle a scream, the figure in the window now more real than ever. Then, just as quickly, she was gone. "I saw her! She was right there!" I stammered, breathless. The man turned to follow my gaze, but when he looked back at me, there was concern mixed with pity. "Listen, it's okay. You should really—" "No!" I cut him off, terror rising again. "You don't understand. She's not just in my head. I can't stay here." Without waiting for a response, I pivoted and sprinted down the road, heart pounding. As I picked up speed, even the trees lining the street seemed to arch their branches, cradling the shadows. The girl's laughter followed me like an echo, teasing, lingering in the air. I felt her presence, as if she were right behind me, just out of reach. I kept running, past empty houses and darkened windows, uncertainty blooming in my chest. Would she follow me forever? Was she lingering in the shadows, waiting for me to look back? Would I ever really be free from that house? Or had I just stumbled into an even deeper mystery? I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if the girl is still there, waiting for someone else to play her game. I don't know if what I experienced was real or a figment of my mind. I wish I could uncover the truth, but some mysteries seem destined to remain unsolved. I just try not to think about it too much.